This changes everything as we have a new shocking Suns trade update revolving around Jimmy Butler. As we all know, he has been the prime Suns trade candidate for the last couple recent weeks. And we have some updates regarding around the trade piece in Bradley Beal as the Miami Heat have spoken up about it. And we got some inside sources letting us know how this could be potential worrisome for the Suns. We're going to be getting into all of that and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. Welcome back, everyone. You guys have been absolutely fantastic, showing your love and support on the channel, which has been super appreciative over the last couple weeks. We've been super appreciative of it. So if you do enjoy the content, make sure to keep hitting that like and subscribe button. The Suns gear up for their big game tonight back in NBA action for the 2025 calendar season. And hopefully it goes off to a great start. But without further ado, let's dive into the video at hand. Make sure to grab a snack. And like I said in the introduction, this is not good for the Phoenix Suns as we got a little bit of a trade update revolving around Jimmy Butler and Bradley Beal. And it is not something that Suns fans are going to want to hear. As we can see from this tweet, courtesy of Real GM, the Miami Heat have no interest in taking back Bradley Beal's contract in a Jimmy Butler trade. And if we want to dive in and look at the report more from this Real Gem article, we can see that the Miami Heat have no interest in taking back Bradley Beal's contract in a potential deal with the Phoenix Suns involving Jimmy Butler. Sources told Bobby Marks of ESPN. And if we want to see a little bit more, Beal is obviously owed $110 million into the next two seasons, and the Suns would need to find a third team should they still want to acquire Butler. It is not out of the equation, but it is still a possibility. The Heat are unable to take back more salary in a deal due to being an apron team. The team is also reportedly trying to trade Butler as soon as possible. The Warriors are apparently no longer considered a viable option for Butler, and many around the league are skeptical that Butler will be able to be dealt due to trade restrictions, making it difficult to move Butler's salary, according to Tim Bontemps. So a lot of news to break down on all of this as the Jimmy Butler trade front has been, kind of been pushing this initiative since he has obviously stated that trade request just a few days ago. And it's obvious that the Miami Heat are willing to move off of him. Jimmy Butler just got a 7-game suspension given by the NBA, so he is not going to be partaking in anything with the Heat. Obviously, the Miami Heat are going to work their best to try to move off him as fast as possible so that he can be on another team working for them. But like they said, it is going to be difficult for them to do a move, and the Heat obviously do not want Bradley Beal. So if the Suns are still in the pursuit for Jimmy Butler, they obviously would have to use a third team to get a deal done. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. But next, we're going to get into what this means for the Suns and why ultimately this is the case, because I am not honestly that shocked that the Miami Heat do not want Bradley Beal's contract for multiple reasons. One, obviously, like we had stated before previously, Beal is owed $110 million over the next two seasons. And if we want to look at Bradley Beal's contract in depth, like we said, he's getting paid $50 million this year, $53 million next year, and the following year after that has a $57 million player option that he obviously will opt into, to guaranteeing you giving him at least 110 mil guaranteed over the next two seasons, including this season having to strap up and pay $50 million. And for a player in Bradley Beal, who has been averaging not the greatest points for the Suns this season at 17.8, 4.2 rebounds a game on 49% shooting from the field and 36% shooting from three. Not the worst shooting percentages for Bradley Beal playing that third star, but his inconsistencies to once again stay healthy for this Suns team, as he has dealt with a multitude of injuries, with a calf injury to some knee swelling to now a hip injury now with the Suns. It has led them to ultimately be questioning why they have a player making $50 million on a team like this that hinders their flexibility, and it's put them in a difficult decision. And for Bradley Beal, not to mention that he also has a no trade clause added onto that contract, makes it even more difficult for a team like the Phoenix Suns to figure out a trade, because it's not like they can just send him to a team like the Brooklyn Nets or to the Detroit Pistons or the Washington Wizards or to the Utah Jazz just to salary dump him due to the fact that he has that no trade clause. And most of those teams most likely wouldn't take Bradley Beal on anyways because the Suns don't have enough ample draft capital to move up off of his contract. But even if they did have the abilities to do that, Bradley Beal would automatically be able to veto the trade and make it not possible for the Suns. So already those roadblocks make it more and more difficult. Secondly, going on to it, Miami might want to do something similar compared to the Clippers, where we saw with Paul George, where they have a little bit of a retool on the fly this season, where they've been able to kind of rebuild their own roster with losing Paul George to the 76ers and the Heat. If they look to kind of go in that direction and go in that route this year, that could be a possibility as well if Butler were to decline his player option and leave the team in free agency. The Heat would then have a ton of free cap space to then use up to sign multiple free agents to put alongside Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier if he stays on this roster, Jaime Jaquez, Bam Adebayo to build that core. And that could be something the Heat want to do as well. And taking on a player like Bradley Beal, making, like I said, $50 million over the next 3 seasons, restricts that because all of that money that you would have freed up for that Butler acquisition is going to be getting paid to a player in Bradley Beal who's not going to be as impactful or influential in that Miami Heat team than, say, 3 to 4 quality role players that could give you a full out roster top to bottom for this Heat squad next season. And I think those are kind of these restrictions here for the Heat to want to take a player in Beal. Obviously, one, making $50 million, obviously not living up to that. Two, wanting to get a little bit younger while still competing. None of those three things really qualify with adding a player in Bradley Beal. And ultimately, it doesn't completely rule the Suns off the market, as we all know. As like I said, the Suns could still be a team still interested. The Warriors are no longer considered a viable trade option for Butler due to the fact they have to give up 4 pieces to acquire Butler. A team like the Houston Rockets is said not to be as interested in Butler due to the fact that there's multiple other names thrown around attached to them, like De'Aaron Fox, possibly Giannis Antetokounmpo or Kevin Durant, possibly in the offseason. Also, the names of uh, the Dallas Mavericks as well have been tossed around with Jimmy Butler, but they would have to sacrifice too much. And with having Luka Doncic already out with an injury, can't be trading all those viable pieces to then acquire a player in Jimmy Butler to sacrifice all of those role players that you need when Luka's out. Therefore, it's going to be some mysterious teams possibly getting in for Butler, but if that's not the case and Beal is the only move that the Miami Heat have present, that might be the only case the Phoenix Suns get a deal done, is if all these teams bow out. But there's still some secret teams, and Butler has said, like I mentioned in our previous video, that he's willing to go anywhere to compete as long as it's not Miami. So if they are able to find a trade to Brooklyn or Washington or Detroit or possibly Atlanta or maybe Memphis, that might be a more viable trade for Miami than a team like Phoenix, only due to the fact that Phoenix has nothing else to offer besides Bradley Beal in this trade. They're not going to trade Devin Booker. They're not going to trade Kevin Durant for smart reasons. And the only trade piece that they have is Bradley Beal, which makes it even increasingly more difficult. But like I said, I personally don't know if Bradley Beal, personally don't know if Jimmy Butler is going to end up on this Suns team. If he is to end up on this Suns team, it's going to have to be via a 3-team trade, and that just makes it even more increasing because what team is going to want to take Bradley Beal's $50 million contract on, and what team would Bradley Beal want to go to that is willing to take his contract on? Both of those kind of questions remain to have multiple answers, if any answers at all, which really makes it very restrictive and what I think is kind of the end all be all for this Jimmy Butler saga revolving around the Phoenix Suns. But ultimately, if the Phoenix Suns remain the only true case and the only team still interested in willing to acquire a player like Jimmy Butler, and the Heat are desperate enough to move off of him, I figure a way that Matt Ishbia and Pat Riley will figure out a way to get a deal done. But I think that is kind of a last resort type of thing. Ultimately, if another offer presents itself more viable for the Miami Heat, they will take that over the Phoenix Suns, and the Suns will be stuck with this big three still this season. But let me know what you guys ultimately think down below in the comment section, how you guys ultimately feel about this Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal news, how it makes you ultimately feel. Like I said, I'm a little bit disappointed. I would have loved to see Jimmy Butler on this team. I think he would have fit perfectly alongside with Tyus Jones, alongside with this team. It would have been a perfect dream kind of scenario, but I think it was a little bit more of a 2K realistic dream than an actual dream that we could have seen as Suns fans at this very moment. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section, what you guys ultimately think. And thank you guys so much for showing your support on this channel, as it has been very appreciative. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. A go Phoenix Suns. Peace out, everyone.